March 27, 1945, near Speyer, Germany. Oberst Wilhelm Hoffmann of the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division watched through his field glasses as a single American soldier charged across 100 yards of open ground toward German machine gun positions. The soldier's brown skin and distinctive features marked him as what Nazi racial doctrine classified as mestizo, a mongrel mix unfit for military service. Hoffmann smirked. These Americans send their racial inferiors to die first. The machine guns will cut him down within seconds. The soldier kept running. German MG-42s opened fire, their distinctive ripping sound filling the morning air. The American stumbled, blood spreading across his uniform. He got up and continued forward. He fell again, rose again, kept advancing. Hoffmann lowered his binoculars in disbelief as the wounded soldier reached the first machine gun nest and destroyed it with grenades, then the second, then the third. What Hoffmann didn't know was that he had just witnessed Staff Sergeant Macario Garcia earning the Medal of Honor, becoming one of 5 Mexican Americans to receive America's highest military decoration in World War II. The mathematics of valor were about to demolish Nazi racial science. Mexican Americans, representing less than 2% of the U.S. population, would earn more medals of honor per capita than any other ethnic group in American military history. Between 500,000 and 750,000 Mexican Americans served in World War II. They earned 17 medals of honor, 5 during the war itself, 12 retroactively when records were reviewed decades later. The rate of highest valor among these supposedly inferior soldiers would force German commanders to confront the bankruptcy of their racial theories with every engagement. The German military's dismissal of Mexican-American fighting capability stemmed from deeply embedded racial prejudices that paralleled their views on all non-Aryan peoples. Wehrmacht training materials classified Latin Americans as indolent, cowardly, and lacking warrior spirit. SS racial theorist Hans F. K. Günther had written that mestizos represented racial chaos, incapable of disciplined military service. German intelligence reports from 1942 noted with satisfaction that America was deploying Mexican units, interpreting this as desperation and predicting these troops would break at first contact. What German commanders couldn't know was that many Mexican-American soldiers carried a warrior tradition stretching back centuries. They were descendants of conquistadors and Aztec warriors, Apache and Comanche fighters. More immediately, they were young men who had grown up facing discrimination in America, determined to prove themselves through valor that no one could deny. They entered the army from the barrios of Los Angeles, the cotton fields of Texas, the mines of Arizona, carrying not just American patriotism, but the weight of their community's honor. Company E of the 141st Infantry Regiment, 36th Division, became known as El Compañía. Based in El Paso, Texas, it was predominantly Mexican-American. German forces would encounter this unit repeatedly in Italy and France, each time learning painful lessons about their racial assumptions. In September 1943, at the Rapido River in Italy, German observers reported that American units with high percentages of Hispanic soldiers were attacking with unexpected ferocity. They fight like demons, not like the soft Americans we expected, one German officer wrote in his diary. Private First Class Silvestre Herrera provided the most devastating refutation of Nazi racial theory on March 15, 1945, near Merzwiller, France. When his platoon was pinned down by German fire, Herrera charged alone across a minefield. Both his feet were blown off by German mines. Herrera continued firing from the ground, providing cover for his unit's advance. He single-handedly killed 6 German soldiers and destroyed 2 machine gun nests while bleeding from traumatic amputation of both feet. German soldiers who witnessed this couldn't reconcile it with their ideology, a racial inferior displaying courage that exceeded their own elite troops. The story repeated across every theater. Private Jose F. Valdez, on January 25, 1945, near Rosencrantz, France, held off an entire German company alone. Armed with only a BAR and grenades, Valdez provided covering fire while his unit withdrew. German records indicate they deployed over 200 soldiers against his position. Valdez killed at least 20 German soldiers before being overrun. His body was found surrounded by enemy dead. The German commander reported being held up for 3 hours by what we believed was a reinforced platoon. It was one Mexican-American soldier. Staff Sergeant Lucian Adams demonstrated the systematic destruction of German racial assumptions on October 28, 1944, in the forest near Saint-Iby, France. Armed with a borrowed BAR after his rifle jammed, Adams eliminated 3 German machine gun nests single-handedly. He killed 9 German soldiers in close combat, cleared multiple defensive positions, and reopened a critical supply line. German survivors reported to their commanders that a single American of evident Spanish blood had destroyed an entire defensive sector designed to hold off a company. The most devastating psychological blow came from Technical Sergeant Clito Rodriguez on February 9, 1945, near Paco Railroad Station in Manila. Though fighting Japanese forces, the action was reported through German intelligence networks as evidence of American desperation using mongrel troops in the Pacific. Rodriguez and his companion, Private First Class John N. Reese, assaulted a building held by approximately 40 Japanese soldiers. Rodriguez killed 82 enemy soldiers in room-to-room fighting, more individual kills in a single action than most German soldiers achieved in entire campaigns. When German attachés received these reports, they dismissed them as propaganda. No single soldier, especially not a mestizo, could achieve such numbers. The mathematics were undeniable. Mexican-American soldiers comprised roughly 2% of U.S. forces, but earned 3.5% of medals of honor awarded to Army ground troops during the war. When calculated per capita based on population representation, Mexican Americans earned medals of honor at rates exceeding any other ethnic group. These weren't just medals for dying bravely, but for tactical actions that changed battle outcomes. Every one of these medals represented German positions overrun, German soldiers killed, German assumptions shattered. Beyond the Medal of Honor recipients, Mexican Americans earned thousands of other decorations. The 158th Regimental Combat Team, with high Mexican American enrollment, became known as the Bushmasters. They fought from Panama to the Philippines, earning Presidential Unit citations. German intelligence, attempting to identify American unit weaknesses, consistently failed to predict the fighting capability of units with high Hispanic enrollment. In prisoner of war camps, captured German officers expressed bewilderment at Mexican-American military excellence. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, captured in France, told interrogators, "We were told these soldiers would run at the first shot. Instead, they fought harder than any troops we faced. Their NCOs showed initiative we didn't expect from Americans, let alone their minorities." Weber had lost his entire company to an assault led by Mexican-American sergeants who had coordinated a complex flanking maneuver that German doctrine said required officer leadership. The cultural elements of Mexican-American service confused German observers even more. These soldiers maintained high morale through music, food, and family connections that seemed unmilitary to Prussian traditions. Yet units with mariachi music and homemade tortillas consistently outperformed German expectations. The 200th and 515th Coast Artillery Regiments, both heavily Mexican-American from New Mexico, endured the Bataan Death March and 3 years of Japanese captivity with survival rates that exceeded other units, maintaining discipline through cultural bonds Germans couldn't understand. Lieutenant Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II, though not Mexican-American himself, fought alongside many Mexican-American soldiers in the 3rd Infantry Division. He later stated that some of the bravest soldiers he knew were Mexican kids from Texas who had more to prove than anyone. They fought for a country that often treated them as second-class citizens, yet they never hesitated. German forces facing Murphy's unit learned that the brown-skinned soldiers were often the most dangerous, approaching combat with a fatalistic courage that terrified defenders. By early 1945, German intelligence had compiled enough reports to recognize their catastrophic miscalculation. A captured document from the German 19th Army noted, "The American colored troops and Spanish blood soldiers fight with unexpected determination. Previous assessments of racial weakness appear unfounded. These troops display particular aggression in close combat." This admission, buried in operational reports, represented the complete failure of Nazi racial science when confronted with battlefield reality. The impact extended beyond combat statistics. Mexican-American soldiers forced a reckoning within the American military itself. Their undeniable valor made segregation and discrimination increasingly untenable. How could the Army deny equal treatment to soldiers earning the highest decorations at unprecedented rates? The cognitive dissonance became unbearable. German prisoners of war expressed confusion at American racial policies that seemed to contradict the evidence of Mexican-American military excellence they had witnessed firsthand. When the war ended, the full magnitude of Mexican-American contribution became clear. 12 Mexican-Americans from Texas alone earned the Medal of Honor. Sergeants José Mendoza Lopez, Macario Garcia, and Cleto Rodriguez returned as heroes to communities that had sent them off as second-class citizens. Their medals became undeniable proof of equality earned in blood. German veterans, in post-war interviews, consistently mentioned surprise at the fighting quality of American minority troops, particularly those they had dismissed as racial inferiors. The retroactive recognition came decades later, when military historians recognized that Mexican-American valor had been systematically underreported during the war. 12 additional medals of honor were awarded retroactively, bringing the total to 17. Each represented not just individual courage, but the collective demolition of racial prejudices that had informed both Nazi ideology and American discrimination. The supposedly inferior mestizos had achieved the highest per capita rate of supreme valor in American military history. The German officers, who had smirked at the sight of brown-skinned American soldiers, learned through devastating experience that courage has no color, that warrior spirit recognizes no racial boundaries, and that the Mexican-American soldiers they had dismissed as mongrels would earn glory at rates that exceeded their own supposedly superior Aryan warriors. The mathematics of valor had spoken. The racial theories of the Third Reich lay buried beneath the extraordinary courage of soldiers who proved that honor, bravery, and sacrifice transcend every artificial boundary that prejudice attempts to create.